What if I told you that Ferrari didn't come to Australia to run the first race of the year, but to start a technical war that could decide the entire 2026 season? Because while everyone was analyzing Bahrain's times trying to figure out who was hiding performance, Frédéric Vasseur was already preparing the real blow. A massive update package, not a simple evolution, not an improvised V version, an aggressive optimization of the most controversial SF26 concept. And the most disturbing thing is not that Ferrari has improved. The most disturbing thing is that the rest of the paddock cannot easily copy what they have done. Between the Bahrain tests and the Australian GP, Vasseur not only brought new parts, he brought a declaration of intent. And if you understand how the beginnings of a new regulation work, you know that whoever strikes first can force everyone else to run after them for months. Before the SF26 set foot in Albert Park, before the engineers deployed the new parts in the Melbourne pit, Frédéric Vasseur had already issued the warning. But he did it in such a measured, strategic way that it went unnoticed by many. During the Bahrain tests, while media attention was focused on the times, race simulations, and comparisons between long runs, Vasseur repeated a seemingly innocent message. He expected huge updates from almost all the teams between Bahrain and Australia. A phrase that sounded like a standard preseason speech. Prudent, diplomat, neutral, but it wasn't. That statement had two perfectly calculated layers. The first, obvious, dilute expectations. If everyone will bring big improvements, then what Ferrari does will not be extraordinary. The second, much more important, to psychologically prepare the paddock for what he was about to present. Because Ferrari did not use Bahrain to showcase itself. Used Bahrain to collect data, validate correlations, and build a solid foundation. Vasseur was insistent that the priority was mileage, reliability, and information gathering. Pure performance took a public backseat. Internally, however, the signs were encouraging. The combination of times and long runs offered indications that the SF26 concept had room. And this is where the real strategic move begins. The 2026 regulation opens a new technical cycle. In these scenarios, the first races not only distribute points, they distribute development direction. Every tenth earned at the beginning can be amplified exponentially throughout the year. Every solution that works forces rivals to decide whether to copy it or redesign their philosophy. Vasseur knows it. That is why it accelerated manufacturing times. That's why it validated pieces earlier than usual. That's why he made it clear that early development would have a huge competitive return. While other teams might be waiting to better understand their concepts before introducing significant changes, Ferrari decided not to wait. He decided to attack. And he did it under the narrative of prudence. Officially, Vasseur repeated that it was impossible to draw conclusions because the programs of others were not known. But that public prudence contrasted with a very aggressive private action, preparing a clearly evolved SF26 for the first race of the year. Australia wasn't just going to be the car's first real test. It was going to be the first message to the rest of the grid. And when Ferrari arrived in Melbourne with a relevant upgrade package, it became clear that those words in Bahrain were not a blanket warning, they were a sign of what was to come. We are not talking about reaction here. We are talking about advanced planning. And that completely changes the reading of what happened in Albert Park. When Ferrari arrived in Australia, it didn't do so with a simple incremental update. Nor did it present a completely new version B of the SF26. What it did was something much smarter and, at the same time, more dangerous for its rivals, an aggressive evolution of the base concept. And the key to everything revolves around a very specific element, the so-called exhaust wing, the wing associated with the exhaust. This concept is not a simple decorative aerodynamic detail. It is the technical heart of the SF26, a solution that required a long approval process with the FIA and that, according to the technical analyses mentioned in the file, is not easily copyable by major rivals during this season. That point is decisive. In Formula One, when you introduce something that can't be replicated quickly, you don't just improve your car, you upset the competitive balance. For Melbourne, Ferrari did not redesign the car's architecture. He didn't change his DNA. What he did was surgically optimize it. The updates introduced were focused on maximizing the performance of the blown exhaust. Small but extremely specific adjustments. More precise integration of hot gases with subsequent aerodynamics. Retouches on the bodywork around the diffuser. More efficient channeling of energy flow. All focused on extracting more performance without compromising the stability of the rear. This is key. They didn't sacrifice balance for charging. They did not engage in aggressive behavior. They optimized efficiency. And in a new regulation, efficiency is gold. In addition to the core of the exhaust wing, the package included elements that pointed to a more complete aerodynamic work. We are not talking about an isolated piece, but rather a set that reinforces the overall concept of the car. It is a sign of structural confidence in the philosophy chosen for 2026. Because if you don't believe in your base concept, you don't evolve it aggressively from the first race. You change it. Ferrari did not change it. It enhanced it. And that sends a very clear message to the rest of the paddock. The SF26 is not experimental. It's a solid platform to build on. This is where the strategic dimension of Vasseur's movement comes in. At the beginning of a new regulatory cycle, the early competitive return is enormous. Every tenth that you consolidate in March can be transformed into half a second accumulated months later if the direction of development is correct. That's why Vasseur talked about accelerating manufacturing times. That's why he insisted that everyone bring pieces. Because he already knew that Ferrari was going to do it. They did not wait to fully understand the pecking order behind Bahrain. They decided to condition it. And when one team introduces a relevant package so early, it forces others to react under pressure. There is no room to wait. There is no room to observe calmly. Either you respond quickly, or you fall behind on the development curve. What happened in Australia was not just a technical improvement. It was the formal start of the evolution war between Bahrain and Melbourne. What Frédéric Vasseur did in Australia was not simply presenting new pieces. It was something much deeper. It officially activated the development war of the new 2026 regulatory cycle. In Formula One, the beginning of a technical era is the most delicate and decisive moment. It's not just about scoring points in the first race. It is about defining the direction of evolution. Because when a concept shows potential early and is also aggressively optimized from a first appointment, it forces the rest of the teams to rethink their roadmap. And Ferrari has sent an unmistakable message. The SF26 is not a car that is searching for its identity. It is a car with a clear conceptual basis, reinforced even before the season gained pace. Vasseur did not wait to have 3 or 4 reference races. He didn't let the championship dictate the natural order. He decided to intervene from the first moment. That changes the dynamic of the paddock. When you introduce a solution like the exhaust wing, validated by the FIA and difficult to copy in the short term, you generate structural pressure on your rivals. It is not a superficial improvement that they can replicate in 2 weeks. It is an architecture integrated into the rear aerodynamic behavior of the car. And if it works as Ferrari hopes, it forces others to decide between investing resources in reinterpreting it or continuing to develop their own concept, assuming they start at a disadvantage. In a new regulation, that type of decision can take months. Vasseur has understood something key. Early competitive return is exponential. If you can solidify a lead in March, you can turn it into a stable platform for the rest of the year. Each subsequent update will not be corrective, it will be expansive. You won't be chasing, you will be expanding. And that's exactly what Ferrari seems to be trying to build. While the narrative of caution is publicly maintained that it is difficult to compare programs, that they will all bring improvements, the technical reality shows a team that has decided to accelerate the evolutionary conflict. Don't react, do not observe, but to condition. Australia was not a simple first race. It was the first serious technical positioning movement. If the SF26 package demonstrates consistency, Ferrari will not only have surprised its rivals, it will have altered the pace at which everyone must develop. And in a Formula One where wind tunnel, CFD, and manufacturing time is limited, forcing others to react under pressure is a huge strategic advantage. The question now is no longer whether Ferrari has improved. The question is whether the rest of the paddock will be able to respond with the same speed, or if, without realizing it, they are already entering a war that Ferrari decided to start in Bahrain and formalize in Australia. Because when development becomes a race within a race, whoever scores the first blow does not always win the first battle. Frédéric Vasseur did not arrive in Australia to assess where Ferrari was. It came to force the rest to ask themselves where they are. While many interpreted his remarks in Bahrain as typical preseason caution, what he was really doing was setting the stage for a calculated strategic move. Accelerate manufacturing times. Validate data before anyone else. Promote a technical concept that is not easily replicable. And present an SF26 already evolved since the first race of the new regulatory cycle. That's not a reaction. That's intention. The exhaust wing is not only an aerodynamic innovation. It is the symbol of a clear philosophy. If we believe in our concept, we take it to the limit from the beginning. We don't wait for the championship to set the pace for us. We set the pace of the championship. And here is the most important point. In a new era like 2026, the first technical decisions do not only affect the first races. They define the development trajectory. If Ferrari has got its foundation right and has also strengthened it before anyone else, it can turn this initial advantage into a platform for sustained growth. But if they are wrong, they will also have committed resources very soon. That's what makes this movement so fascinating. It is not conservative. It is not defensive. It's a strong bet. Australia was not simply the start of the calendar. It was the first strategic blow of a development war that is already underway. Let me know in the comments what you think about all this.